So farmers organized a third party. This party was called the Populist Party, and it would be a force in American politics for about 10 years. Why are we talking about the Populist Party? Because a lot of the issues brought up by the Populists would later be incorporated by members of the Progressive Party. The Populist Party is sort of like the rural ancestor of the progressive movement, which we'll be talking about. While the progressive movement is mainly centered in American cities on the East Coast, the Populist Party is big in the Midwest. If we look at this map here, we can see that the biggest state that supported and voted for a populist candidate in 1892 is Kansas. That's no accident, as Dorothy is also from Kansas. So what were the political issues that the Populists championed? The Populists championed a few things. The first is railroad reform. They wanted a nationally owned railroad, one that wouldn't jack up rates on farmers every year. They wanted something called the popular election of senators. This didn't happen prior to the 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Before that, senators were elected by state legislatures. The Populists believed that because other politicians picked U.S. senators, these senators didn't actually represent the needs of average Americans. So what they wanted was the point of view of everyday people to be taken into account through a vote. The next issue that they championed was a graduated income tax. Most taxes in the U.S. were based on tariffs. Tariffs essentially is a sales tax, or it adds cost to everyday things that people buy. Now, if you're poor, this would be disproportionately affecting you. A bigger percentage of your pay, the poorer you are, would go out to pay for these taxes. What the Populists wanted to see was something called a graduated income tax. An income tax, as you might guess, is a straight percentage taken from your income that you earn. A graduated income tax means that the more money you earn, the higher percentage would be taken out of your check in taxes. Maybe you heard about the whole flap about Mitt Romney and his taxes. So far, Mitt Romney has submitted only one of his tax returns prior to this election for the presidency in 2012. The one that he did submit showed that Mitt Romney paid a 15% income tax. That is a lower percentage in taxes than probably your parents pay, and definitely lower than the one I pay, even though we earn most likely a lot less than Mitt Romney. That's because Mitt Romney's been able to move his money around and hide it. So a graduated income tax that the Populists supported would make the income percentage taken from your check go up the more you earned. The last thing that Populists wanted to see happen is they wanted national banks to be eliminated. As we mentioned in the previous slide, farmers owed a lot of money to banks, and they were forced really to take out these loans to keep up with the Joneses in the mechanization of farms. Those are the basic ideas of what they'd like to see. If we were to look how they broke down, on economic issues, populists are extremely liberal. Many of these ideas some people would consider socialist in their orientation. However, on social issues, on things such as morality and behavior, populists were extremely conservative. They believed that part of the problem in America was that we had moved away from old-fashioned Christian values. They wanted to re-embrace these values. So issues that they cared about were the consumption of alcohol. They wanted to restrict the alcohol that was consumed in the U.S. They wanted to outlaw a form of entertainment known as burlesque, which are stage shows in which women danced in a way that you probably wouldn't see as being very provocative, but in the 1890s was considered pretty risque. The last thing they wanted to outlaw was opium. Opium was a growing problem in American cities in the 1890s, and eventually they'd succeed in this one. So, getting to the story of The Wizard of Oz is the main figure of the story, Dorothy. Dorothy symbolizes the average American. And if we think about Dorothy's central problem in the story, what is it? The answer is that she's lost. She doesn't know which way to go. She doesn't know how to get back home. She's confused. What's the right path? She doesn't really know what to do. Dorothy also represents the average American in Baum's opinion because she's innocent and naive and not really aware of the strange world that surrounds her. Now, when we begin the story in the movie version in Kansas, as well as in the book. Kansas in the movie is depicted as dull, as black and white. Kansas represents the dull present. But when Dorothy crosses over, out of her home, into the world of Oz, it's in brilliant Technicolor. Oz represents the beautiful world that's possible if only we elect a populist president.